All right, and we are live. Hello, and welcome back to the Business Octopus live stream. We talk about all sorts of things for your business and how you run faster. Hello, Amanda. Your background is looking fabulous.
Oh, look, I was just saying to Ava and off-camera team, we've been working on the studio here at Imaginate. So watch this space. We've got some new tech coming in. So you'll start to see some upgrades over the next couple of weeks. But thank you. Been working hard on it.
Yeah, and like I fully, we've been pretty consistent over the last, I don't know, almost couple of years now doing this. I don't know. It feels like we've been doing it for a very long time. And every time that we do this, we get a little bit better, we get a little bit faster. But in the last 2 weeks, we've probably dropped the ball more than we've ever dropped it before, mostly or entirely due to me. Life gets in the way, folks. And while we try to be consistent and come along to these things, sometimes things just happen. So anyway, welcome back. And let's get our sprint on, shall we?
Let's get our sprint on indeed. So today we want to talk to you about, we've got the little things that we do on a daily basis, right, in our business to move the needle forward. But what about those big projects? How do we make sure that we're chipping away at the big stuff that's going to have a bigger impact so that it actually gets done? Because I know when I talk to a lot of other founders, entrepreneurs, this stuff just gets put on the back burner. So today we want to talk about what we can do about it.
Yeah, so if you want to do a big thing, you need to sort of sit back and have that vision and do that planning and just sort of really try to understand what it is that what your end state is, what your end goal is. And then you've got to reverse engineer. So anytime you do your strategic planning, you go, where do we want to head? And a lot of time people think strategic planning, they kind of miss the boat on what it is. What you should really be doing is looking at, what's happening in the ecosystem, in the marketplace, whether it's your competitors, customer problems, new technologies that come out, and you look at where you want to be in the future that reflectively is better than where you are now, but also utilizing the nature of things around you. So if you kind of like pit your strengths against someone else's weakness. So anyway, that's a whole separate video. I think maybe we do that in a little bit more detail. But once you've done that, you work your way backwards and you say, all right, well, that's where I want to end up. And to get there, I'm going to need to build a sales engine. Like let's take NVIDIA, right? At the moment, I was listening to a podcast with Jensen Huang. They have to be where computing is in 3 years' time. So they have to plan that far ahead. And like technology is moving so fast, things in AI are changing every week. And like a new thing has been rolled out, like OpenClaw was rolled out in a weekend, and that's been a whole new sort of kettle of fish in and of itself. But like for hardware, to say, right, this server rack, these sort of chips and things, that needs to be planned out 2 to 3 years in advance, because we have to build machines to build the product. We have to design what it is that's going to go together, how that architecture is designed, bring like the electronics guy, bring the computing guy, bring the the marketing guy or girl. These are the things that have to come together to strategically position. But to get to that point, you then need to do, what do we need to focus on? And those are the sprints. And so you've done a lot of work in the last little bit of time on sprints for the Relevate community. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a lot of our community members coming to us and sort of asking for support around getting to that next thing or that next level. So one of our amazing group leaders, Richard, and I sort of sat down and said, okay, how can we do that for the community? So we came up with this concept. So, well, it's been done before, quarterly sprints. So sitting down, and we came up with this concept of, okay, what's one thing we can focus on for one quarter so that everyone in the community is heading towards that same North Star with their own nuance in their own business, so their own KPIs or their own targets that they want to hit, and their own activities that they're doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to move the needle forward in that specific area of their business. And this quarter, we are focusing on sales. So essentially what we do is we did a group training on Monday night, and Kane was our guinea pig. Thank you, Kane. We sat down and we did a constraint analysis. So what was Kane's most immediate constraint when it came to sales? And Richard has got a worksheet for all of our community members so they can do the same thing. And essentially, once you figure out what that immediate constraint is, what your hurdle is or bottleneck is you need to overcome, you can work backwards from that and decide what are 3 activities or 3 tactics that we can employ to overcome that constraint and hit the target that you want to hit either monthly or for that quarter within that period of time. And we've had some very great feedback. Richard rolled it out with the Toowoomba community on, I want to say Wednesday, and he's had some really good feedback, and we're getting great feedback in the community because people can see here's where I am now, and I can see a way to get to the next step or the next place they want to be. And it's all about, as Aben's saying, we got to backwards engineer how to get there.
I think the problem is, like, as a business owner, you're focused on so many things at any one time. You know, like right now you're handling a customer, then something comes in about, you know, HR or payroll, then something else happens, you know, some suppliers pulled their product or some crisis happens over there, you know, like all this stuff is happening at the same time. And so because your attention is so spread, it's really hard to fix anything very deeply or to give something enough attention that it deserves. And that's why, you know, doing little sprints is really, really valuable, because you can say, well, I'm going to have a very set focused over these next, you know, like 90-day sprints. You know, you don't have to overcomplicate it. You know, if it happens faster, great. But you've at least given something enough time and energy and focus, because, you know, as a business owner, like your main focus has generally been your product or your service to solve for your customer. And yes, you have lots of other customers that have some nuance and detail and within that. But, you know, you've got a business because at some point you sat down, you applied focus, and you achieve an objective. And sometimes the things that you really need, you're not paying attention to. We're not paying enough attention to. So by setting aside that time and attention to that one thing that is the roadblock, the challenge, the sticking point within your business, you know, all of a sudden you'll come out with all the sales flyers you need, all the pricing that you need, the landing pages that you need, the scripts that you need. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And if you're not spending that time building that asset, and it is an asset because it's something that you can pull from again later. I spent 2 days filming, you know, earlier this week, where we basically, you know, filmed a couple of customer testimonials. And so that's 2 whole days away from being on the tools, like in the job, running the company. But that 2 whole days with my like lead technical team member is now video content that can be used in sales conversations 5,000 times over, you know, the next year or 2 years or something like that. You know, anytime someone goes, oh, have you worked with a company like us before? Yes, here's video. These guys did a testimonial on us. Great.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. And they're so valuable because it's that third party endorsement, right? It's not saying, look how great I am. This person without a gun to their head has said how great I am, right? Which is what we want.
And they're willing to set time aside to do that. So 100%. I think, you know, like on the sales stuff, like that can be a little bit marketing. It is a little bit also involved in sales. What specifically was the sprint or is in the sprint that you're running right now?
And this is exactly what we were talking about on Monday night. There's this really blurry line between sales and marketing. And sometimes, even if we're focusing on sales, if their immediate constraint is a marketing thing, yeah, we're going to have to jump into that and solve for that while we're focusing on sales. So we might need to fix part of your marketing, which what ended up happening with Kane. Coincidentally, he had where people were coming into the website, Richard. And Kane is completely across what he does. He knows everything that's going on. But Richard said, hey, why haven't you done this? And Kane's like, oh, that's a really good point. Why haven't I done that? Just Richard's offhanded comment, a quick question, and he's gone and fixed that constraint. And now we just sit back and watch the sales change. But that constraint was in the marketing specifically, or, you know, the front facing, how people get in contact with his company. And if you want to hear all about it, you can jump into the community and check it out.
Well, like the blurring the line between sales and marketing, they almost should work as one, or they're two teams of or sub departments of a single department. So like on a management higher level, they need to be interacting and talking, but to some extent, like sales need to be on the phone and marketing needs to be in the corner, like imagining, creating, and coming up with the latest, like
Exactly.
flyer or something.
That's it. And you see, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself, Avon, when they're not talking to each other, that's when it doesn't work. They need to be collaborating and communicating and working together.
And one key factor there is sales objections. So when people are talking on the phone and or like in sales meetings, and the client goes, yeah, but this, and that is the key most valuable thing that you can then push back into marketing, because
100%.
if you can kill off that buyer objection through that customer journey before they even go and talk to the salesperson, that is what makes them close so much faster, because maybe they had 10 doubts, and by the time they see all of the marketing and get into the meeting, it could be that they've booked the meeting, but then you send like an info pack beforehand. And sometimes people don't read it, but sometimes they do. So like if they get into the meeting and they've seen all that, they've killed off, the frequently asked questions, or maybe there's a flyer that says how we solve problem X that nobody else solves. And then they get into that sales conversation, and then the salesperson is really only handling either confirming, what this person already knows. And, like I had this problem the other day, and I made a post about it because I called, I'll say it, O'Brien Windscreen Repair, but I was really turned off by their level of automation. So this is where maybe these two need to talk, because all I wanted to do, like I'm time poor, I'm a busy business owner. I wanted to get my windows tinted because I'm getting sunburned through the windscreen with this new car, and I wanted to fix a little windscreen chip. So I thought I'll do two at the same time. I tried on the website, couldn't find it. Right. So then I decided I would call. I pick up the phone and it says, press 1 for automotive glass. Okay, press 1. Press 1 if in the next question, press 1 if you're paying for this, press 2 if the insurance company's going to pay for it. I'm like, it's me. I press 1. And then it was like, put in your postcode. I'm like, surely this is the last step. So I put in my postcode, and then it goes, put in your registration number. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not. I just had a question. And if the answer was yes, I would say book me in. But because they went straight down to the pipeline of, and I think at that point it was now an AI engine. So it was please say or tell us your thing, and then you would have to talk to it, and then it would be like, okay, well, go here. This is how much. And I found that incredibly frustrating. I hung up straight away. And I called someone else. I said, do you do this and this? And they said, yes. And I said, book me in. I'll see you next week. And they got, a decent amount of money out of me. So you can kill your sales by trying to automate everything. Yes, you should use automation, but it should be the in-between behind the scenes stuff that the customer doesn't see.
Yeah.
Like if you're a utility company and then everybody just has to use you, they have no choice but to use you, then you can start using the AI stuff. But, dental clinics that are using AI, you are losing customers. Windscreen repair companies, you are losing customers. So just think about that. Electricians, I'm moving on. I'm sorry. But
I agree. I immediately get the irrits if I hear an AI voice or automation. Like, I'm happy to maybe put some details in, but then I at least want to know that I'm going to talk to a human. But please, this is your client, your customer experience. You need to get this right. Please do not annoy them, because they will go elsewhere.
Well, here's something else that's going on. And to some extent, this is really just a data aggregation service. But it does lean into what happens with AI, with sales and marketing, right? And that is, someone got an AI to ring around all of the pubs in Ireland to get the price of a Guinness beer, and then put all of that data on a website saying, here is all of the prices of all of the beers in all of the pubs across this region of Ireland. And now people go to that website and they'll pick the local pub to go to based on the price on this website. So it basically created almost like a stock market for beer prices, right? So
That is
then,
wild.
so
Okay.
now all of these pubs are having to change their prices to stay competitive to get the people in the door so that they can keep their customers coming, right? So that there's a market force that nobody expected. But what was happening before is they would probably say, well, you come to this pub because you like the quaint little feel, or you want to feel
100%.
like have lots
The
of room.
experience.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? There's the
Yeah.
marketing component, right? So the marketing component is centered around the experience, not the price of the beer. So now they're having to center it around the price of the beer. How are they going to reflect the experience? Because the big open space that feels luxurious is going to cost more to, you know, in rent, in facilities,
Yep.
maintenance, and the dark dingy hole in the ground that's got the cheap beer has a different feel. So, you know,
Yeah.
maybe it's now in
Wow.
the food. Maybe like the food is
Yeah.
less
There you
comparable.
go. There you go. Oh, I'm completely intrigued by that. I wonder how many people like bypass that altogether and just go to their favorite pub, the one they know they like, or the one where
Exactly.
they like the
And that
atmosphere.
would be 90% of patrons, right? I'm never going to look on a website. I'm just going to go, there's one, we're here. Let's catch up.
Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
It's near
If
me.
there's
It's
a
my
few
favorite
people
one.
in there.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. 100%.
But I think, you know, getting back on the topic of sprints, you know, like unless you sat down and that's kind of more, that was something that a market force that was sort of at a point in time. Whereas for the most part, you could say in your sales sprint, for example, what are the, you know, risks factors that of other parties? What are we going to do when this happens? So you could almost come up with a plan. What happens if the price of cost of goods goes up like this? How are we going to handle, you know, communicating with the customer? How are we going to handle, you know, dealing with the price? Are we going like make some decision rules? Are we going to wear the cost for a period of time to keep customers, or are you just going to up it straight away? You know, these are the things that, you know, you can do in your sprint planning that will enable sales.
100%. And that has actually come up. Multiple clients I've spoken to have had to get creative or change tack because of the fuel pricing that's been up and down and all over the place at the moment. So absolutely, that's been coming up. So we need to respond to the market in terms of our sales and marketing strategies as well.
Well, the client we were speaking to is in the transport industry, and they've got pressure on all sides because not only are the cost of fuel going up, but then the employees. So because they're in transport, that's their one of their primary inputs is fuel. And so their costs are going up, and then their employees are saying, "Oh well, cost of living is insane. We don't want to come to work. We want to work from home. But that sort of job, you really need to, you know, be like talking to this person and that person and this person and that person.
Yeah,
and that
be
environment,
in a collaborative space. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So now they've got challenges on multiple sides. Whereas, you know, other businesses, you know, someone accosted me the other day pretty much saying, oh, how are you going with fuel? I'm like, fine, I work from home most of the time. Anywhere I got my laptop, I'm good. They're like, oh, but surely it's this. No, surely it's that. No. You know, like sometimes people look for a problem that's not really there, or, you know, like, and again, I feel like we're getting off track now on the sales side, on the sprint side. But there's bigger problems, and that requires bigger thinking. And doing sprints allows you to have singular focus on all of these issues. But once you've written it down, once you've considered it, once you have your action plan, you've then got the headspace. So it's sort of like chicken and egg. Like if you don't do the planning, you don't have the headspace. You need the headspace to do the planning. So sometimes you're just going to have to rip the Band-Aid off, find the headspace, do the planning, write it down. And that's what sprints are about, because you can go, right, today or this quarter, it's, you know, maybe you don't have to just do one thing a quarter. Maybe you got 2 focuses or 3, you know, like don't go more than that, because now you're crowding out your mental capacity. But you'd say, all right, well, it's going to be finance, it's going to be sales, and it's going to be marketing. Maybe that's the first quarter. And then the next quarter, you're going to do something on HR, something on, you know, I don't know, whatever else you've got, stock, suppliers, and things like that.
Yeah. And if you think about what are these big projects that I keep putting off, put it into your sprint, and then bake it into your weekly routine. Like Avon's saying, set aside the time. Richard was saying on the training, if it's not in his calendar, it doesn't happen. So set aside sprint focus time to come up with the tactics or the ways that you're going to approach it, or your strategy. And then also you need to put aside time to execute on that as well.
Yeah. Well, I think we've had a pretty good chat through today, and I'm sure we could do a lot more. We have our OKRs. So like, not only do we have whole organization focused sprints, but we also have individual goals, which all align with the bigger vision. And sometimes some little side projects, things that don't really seem like they're going to help, but they're just more like housekeeping things that you would otherwise sweep under the rug, or get to a certain point and go, oh shit, like I don't have the ability to do anything because I haven't cleaned up this other thing over here.
Exactly.
And that's what sprints gets to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Make sure you're getting stuff done that needs to get done.
Yes. Well, I think that's good for the day. So if you are watching, if indeed you still are, thank you very much. Please do give us a like and subscribe. Let us know what you thought in the comments. Don't forget to pop along to the Relevate community and see what it's all about. If you've got questions, if you've got comments, if you want to join in on some of our sprints, make sure you come along and we can involve you in some of our sprint cycles and keep you accountable to make sure that you actually deliver. Other than that, stay classy.
Catch you next time.